much for having me here. So my talk is about new kinds of robots that are already out there, and they are called social robots. We saw some example before, but we can think to robotic teachers, robotic nurses, even to robotic friends and robotic lovers. And recently, these robots are started to move from science fiction to our labs, and from our labs to our social context, which means that they are becoming part of our social world. So this is the issue I would like to propose for discussion today. What do you think about sharing our private, our public spaces, hospitals, schools, but also our homes with these robots? Are you afraid of this and tend to think that these robots will damage us and our society? Or you can think or can see in these robots the potential of helping us to improve ourselves and our society. So this is the issue I would like to discuss by considering more closely social robots, which are designed by specialists in social robotics not as robotic tools for us, but as social partners. That is, the idea is that of robots that can interact with us through our social signals, gestures, emotional expression, verbal communication, and so on. And this works in the sense that it has been shown that this skill enriches social robots of what we call social presence. That is the capability of generating in us, in the users, the impression of being with someone. That is not an object, not a person, but a social agent that shares some traits of people, of other persons, so social partners in this sense. And how social robotics is doing that? It's doing that by combining engineering and science, in the sense that social robotics is incorporating in these robots scientific hypotheses about us, about our cognitive, our affective, our social processes, and then tests these hypotheses by evaluating the quality of the interaction of these robots with us. And in this sense, we can see every attempt of introducing one of these robots in our social context as an experiment that is telling something about these hypotheses and so about us. And in this sense, we can think to social robotics as a science, as a synthetic anthropology, a science that is studying humans by constructing robotic models of humans. That is a science that, through these models, is helping us to deepening our scientific understanding of who we are, but at the same time, by diffusing these robots in our social context, is imposing to us to address the issue of what we will become through the introduction of these robots in our social context. In these robots will change us, will change the way in which we interact with technology, will become more and more social this way. They will change the way in which we interact with each other, we experience and we think social affective interactions. And we cannot foresee the effects of these changes, because the same process through which we will understand better ourselves and our sociality through these robots is the same process through which we will be transformed based on the introduction of these robots in our social context. So here the question, how we can orient the diffusion of social robots towards a positive future for us and our society. And this is one of the main questions of a new field in philosophy and ethics of technology, that is ethics of social robots, a field that is divided with regard to this point. Indeed, the mainstream in this field tend to recognize in this technology a cheating technology that cannot be beneficial to us. The idea is that these robots are not capable of establishing social relations like ours, so they are fooling us in making us believe they can. On the long term, the concern is that we will prefer to interact easily with these robots than difficultly with other humans. And so these robots, the diffusion of these robots will produce radical forms of social isolation, which are good points. These are concrete dangers inherent to this technology. But if we consider this point of view more closely, we can see that it can be more harmful than helpful. Let's consider a controversial example of a robot that is produced and commercialized today, a kind of robot, and that is a sex robot with an integrated rape option that is programmed to resist to the advance of the users in such a way that the user can impose to the robot sexual acts. if we consider this kind of robots, applying the logic that is underlying the ethical condemnation of these robots, we can see in this violence only simulated violence, because it cannot be more real than the simulated suffering of these robots. And so we can start to see the limits of this point of view. In the sense, it's a point of view that on one side allow the users to consider unreal the violence they are exercising on these robots, which can be problematic considering that users tend to see in these robots social partners, not objects. On the other side, it fails in engaging the ethical inquiry in understanding how the interaction with these social robots is changing our ethical and our social behavior. So the most likely outcome of this kind of approach to the ethics of social robots is not the banning of these robots, but is an evolution of social robotics without a focused ethical research, without focused ethical guidelines. So the most probable outcome will be a social robotics driven by economical interest, so producing more of these robots than other kind of robots we are already producing, like socially assistive robots designed to help, for example, children with special needs to improve their social skills, heavily criticized by this point of view. So that's why, in my view, it's very important now in the next years to propose alternatives to this ethical approach to social robots. Alternatives that are betting on the possibility of using these robots as tools of self-development for us. So the idea is that of accepting the challenge that these robots are proposing to us and trying to create a positive synergy between the process of self-knowledge and the process of self-transformation that we are undergoing through the diffusion of these robots. So the idea is that, for example, express this idea in an approach that we are introducing now as a synthetic ethics. The idea is that of a ethical research integrated in specific projects of production of social robots with a double aim, studying the effects on our social behavior, on our ethical behavior of the interaction with these robots, case by case, and then engaging the ethical inquiry in producing better robots and guidelines to use better. So the idea is that of transforming the analysis of the risks generated by these robots in research questions to be answered through concrete implementative solutions and concrete ethical guidelines. So how we can build social robots that are working as social connectors and not as means of isolation for us. How we can build robots that are stimulating positive interaction between humans instead of weakening our relations. For example, how we can build robots that are discouraging us, helping us to discourage the exercise of violence on social partners instead of stimulating it. So the idea is that of an ethics that is trying not to reduce but to multiply our possibilities. And here possibility means of possibilities of positive coevolution between us, also through these robots, by positive coevolutions, that is collaborations through all the disciplines that can be fruitfully involved in the creation of better social robots. It is not only social robotics, but also philosophy, epistemology, ethics, but also anthropology, sociology, and so on. So thank you very much for your attention.